Dell's updated the XPS 15 with a 9560. Today I'll tell you what's new and whether it's any good. Stay tuned. So if you've been following me for a few years now, the XPS 15 is one of my favorite 15-inch laptops. I've actually personally owned every version, even before they had that Infinity Edge display. So I'm very excited here with the 9560. Let me tell you what's new, because I think it's pretty significant. First, they upgraded the CPU. So now it's Kaby Lake. That's a Core i7, Core i5, or a dual-core Core i3 for the low-cost entry model version. That's pretty good. Now, Kaby Lake is not a huge upgrade, but it does give better thermals, a little bit better performance, and slightly better battery life. So hey, I'll take it. The RAM has also been improved, so you still get the 18, 16, and 32 gig configurations, but now it can go up to 2400 megahertz, which is actually pretty fast RAM for a laptop, so that's always nice to have. The other big feature here, of course, is the GPU. So they went from a 960M to a 1050. That's actually a pretty good upgrade, and you'll see later on in my benchmarks just how much of a performance increase it really is. They also upgraded the Wi-Fi card, so now it's a killer wireless AC1535, but I'll talk about how that may actually be a mistake. And for an extra $25, Dell's letting you add a fingerprint scanner for Windows Hello logins. All these small changes are very important because what makes the XPS 15 such an outstanding laptop is the sum of all its components. Before I get to that stuff though, let's give a quick tour of the device and I'll show you about its design. So you still here have, of course, the barrel plug along with a USB 3.0 Type A port, HDMI 1.2. You also have a USB Type-C Thunderbolt port, which is a really nice port, but they do still limit the PCI to 2 lanes and not 4, and that's important for some people, just to get your headphone jack. Coming to the other side, you get a full SD card slot. Now the SD card will stick out, so unlike the HP Spectre X360 15-inch, you can actually stick that card all the way in. You also have another USB Type A port for classic. You also have your Dell battery meter here, which you can press and basically get a reading of how much battery you have, and a Kensington lock. Coming around to the front here, you have a small LED. It turns white when you're charging the XPS 15, which I think is a really great addition. It also turns amber when the battery is low. There are also 2 microphones here in the front as well. All right, let's check out the bottom. Again, no changes here. You have 2 speakers. Now, they're on the edge of the device, so they're not upward firing, but they're not quite downward firing. A little bit in between. Not the most perfect design, but they work well enough. You also have, of course, the little boots here to keep it off of a hard surface. You have the XPS labeled underneath there. You have the hidden FCC stuff, which is, of course, always a mess, but good thing you can hide it there with that neat little design Dell does here. You also have, of course, the full venting here along with 2 fans. You have to be careful, of course, to make sure this gets enough clearance to basically take in air to cool the laptop, but as you'll see later, this laptop doesn't get too hot on a normal load, so that's a good change. Now, nothing has changed between this year's model and last year's. You're still getting machined aluminum on the outside, which is really nice. It's very clean. It only comes in silver, though. They are not doing what they did with the XPS 13 and offering it in that copper gold version. I'd really like to kind of see that option available, as I think this is getting a little tiring, but, you know, it's still a good design. Coming to the inside, you still get the carbon fiber look here with soft touch paint. It's very warm and inviting. It just feels really, really nice. The only downside is it will pick up oil over time, so you'll occasionally need to wipe it down. Now let's talk a little bit about specifications. Dell allows you to configure this in many different ways. As I mentioned earlier, you can get a Core i3, Core i5, or Core i7 processor. You also vary the RAM, the hard drive, the battery size. There's all sorts of choices here. So the version I'm testing here is a full HD display along with a Core i7 processor, 16 gigs of RAM, and 512 gigabytes of storage. And that's with the new 97 watt-hour battery, which is huge. That's a big increase over the 84 watt-hour from last year. I actually do have the 4K panel on the older version of this laptop, and it's fantastic. It's one of the best displays you're going to get. But not everybody needs 4K, including myself. I love Full HD and matte because it's just easier on my eyes. So here's a closer look at the Full HD version. You can still see it has the Infinity Edge display, of course, which leaves no room for the web camera, which is still here at the bottom. That is going to be a problem for some people. If you don't ever use the webcam, it's not a big deal. The Full HD version is very good. You talk about brightness around 380 nits, but it also gets dim enough to use, say, at nighttime when you're laying in bed, which is a big deal. Of course, it is anti-reflective, which I find just super important. You can see here, we have a lot of bright lights on, and there's just nothing coming off this display. And that's really good if you're going to be staring at this for hours on end and writing. Color calibration is also pretty good. I did find the whites to be a little bit warmer than I preferred, so I made them cooler, more neutral. The choice is up to you. I should mention that the 4K version does come with Dell Premiere Color, which is a really neat app that allows you to change the color gamut from everything from vivid to sRGB. It's a really nice addition. Let's talk about the keyboard here. Nothing has changed from last year's model. You either love the XPS 15's keyboard or you don't. It's still a little bit mushy. I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's really just a keyboard and it works. Now, I had no issues typing on it. I just don't feel very strongly about it. If you remember my HP Spectre X360 videos, I really touted that keyboard. It's just a phenomenal experience. I can't say that's the same case here. It's not a bad keyboard at all, and in fact, I use this as one of my main devices. It's just not exceptional. I would still like to see Dell maybe switch to a metal keyboard in the future, but overall, hey, it's a keyboard. It works. Let's go down a little bit now and we'll talk about the fingerprint scanner. If you have a hard time seeing it, it's because it's really blended into the body. Now, I'm going to give a little criticism here to Dell. I think, first of all, great that they're offering fingerprint scanner. I would have really dinged this laptop had they not. And I think they knew that. And that's why I think they added this at the last minute. And the reason I say that is it looks like they literally just carved a hole out here, stuck a Synaptics fingerprint scanner in there and called it a day. Now, don't get me wrong. It works very well. It's one of the fastest fingerprint scanners I've used. I wish I would have put maybe a little LED light here so when Windows Hello kicks in, that lights up. If you're trying to use this in the dark, you're really going to have a hard time kind of feeling it. So it works very well. I think they could do better though. It just feels like this is a little bit below what the XPS standards are. One of the most controversial areas on any laptop, of course, is the trackpad. Luckily, the XPS 15 has one of the better ones out there. More importantly, it is precision. You know my thoughts on these. I love precision touchpads. Dell still sticks with that here. That means you get all the Windows 10 gestures. They're very fast. They're very quick. I have no issues with this trackpad. It's very soft to the touch. It's right up there with the Surface Book in my opinion, and it has those precision drivers, which I think is just a great design. Let's talk about these speakers and the quality of them. As you can see, they're on the lip of the device here. They're not too bad, but I'm not blown away either. I really wish Dell would somehow reconfigure this device to put the speakers on top near the keyboard, which on 13-inch devices is hard to do. On 15 inches, it's a lot easier. That is where most devices put them these days, and it definitely sounds a lot better. These speakers are pretty rich sounding, so they're a little bit better and more rich than the HP Spectre speakers, but I'm still not like really blown away by them either. So as you can see, not much has changed physically with the XPS 15 besides that optional fingerprint scanner. Let's talk about benchmarks. There's been a lot of improvements here between the processor, the GPU, and more. Let's get to it. Looking at Geekbench 4, the XPS 15 gets 4,503 for a single core, while it gets 13,587 for multi-core. And that's the top of our list for laptops so far. That's likely due to it being a Core i7 7700HQ. That's a quad-core processor, 7th generation. Very impressive stuff. Looking at that GTX 1050 in Geekbench 4 scores, we can see here for CUDA, it does very well, 75,636. To put that in perspective, compared to last year's XPS 15, the 960M only scored 54,922. This puts a 1050 right between a 980M and a 965M. Pretty impressive. All right, putting aside raw benchmark numbers, what does this mean for real-world gaming? So I like to play Doom and Gears of War 4. Gears of War 4, you're looking at medium settings and still getting 60 frames per second. That's with VSync off. If you use the custom settings, though, it's going to get a little bit better. As a big Gears fan, I think this looks fantastic. I have absolutely no problems playing with this on the XPS 15, and I highly recommend it. If you were talking about Doom, it's even better. You can basically play Doom at high, still hit 60 frames per second with VSync on. You can even set it to Ultra, but you're going to get about 40 to 45 frames per second, which is not nearly as good. Overall, gaming on the Dell XPS 15 is a fantastic experience. It's much better than I thought it would be. Now, it's not nearly as good as a Razer Blade with its 1060. That card really does outperform the 1050 by a significant amount. But if you're a hardcore gamer with a desktop PC at home, you can definitely take the Dell XPS 15 with you on the road and still get a really good experience. Let's talk about the SSD here. I'm very excited. Dell has included the Samsung PM961 in this device. Now, if that doesn't mean anything to you, maybe you've heard the Samsung 960 EVO. I reviewed it a few weeks ago. It's one of my favorite SSDs out there. It's super fast. You're talking about over 2,000 megabytes per second for read and about 1,600 megabytes per second for writes. That's really good for people who like to game, video producers, and anyone else who needs fast hard drives here. Regarding fans and temperature, overall, very good story here. Fans are pretty cool. They do not get very loud. Of course, if you're playing a first-person shooter, you will hear them come on. It's not nearly as loud as a Razer Blade, but you do hear them. Regarding regular usage though, say you're just browsing the web or running some apps, they do not come on at all. I really do not hear them very often. For temperatures, you're talking about 130 degrees Fahrenheit maxed out. That's about 54 degrees Celsius. That's in the upper keyboard area when gaming for 10 to 20 minutes. It is warm, but it's definitely not the hottest thing out there. Once again, under a regular usage, it's a very cool laptop and you won't feel it in your lap at all. Battery life on the XPS 15 is also very good. Now, Dell increased the battery from an 84 watt hour to a 97 watt hour one for this year's model. That's just below the legal limit for flying, so you can't complain much there. Now, there's another version that also has a 56 watt hour. That's in the lower tier versions because they need to put in a hard disk drive, which takes up that space. So you have two versions. Make sure you get the 97 watt hour if you want battery life. Now, I'm using a full HD display, so of course it's going to get better battery life. I'm talking 8 to 9 hours of real-world usage. I'm very happy with that. It's a slight increase from last year, probably about 10%, but it helps a lot. Now, if you're going to get the 4K panel, you could probably subtract a good 2 to 3 hours off of that, which is still really good. So 6 hours, maybe 7 hours. That's pretty impressive, though, for a 4K laptop running a quad-core processor with all the other components on this device. So far, so good. There's really nothing wrong here with this laptop, but there is one thing I'm not happy with, which is the Killer AC1535 wireless card. Now, Killer is pretty popular with gamers. It has a really good brand name out there, but there's also a lot of complaints, and I've seen it both on the forums for this device as well as my own personal experience. The issue is this: under heavy load, that card can fail. So, for instance, if you're downloading a large game over Steam and you want to go watch a YouTube video, your card may actually get the exclamation point and then it X's out and it restarts the driver. It's really inconvenient. Now, that can be probably fixed by a driver update, so I don't think the world is lost here. You can also upgrade the Wi-Fi card to, say, an Intel AC one, which I'll be doing here in a couple weeks, and I'll show you how to do that. It's a real simple change, and you may actually prefer that. But that is an issue to be aware of. Now, if you're just browsing the web and using this as a normal device, you won't experience this at all. It's really not a problem. And it may also be dependent on your router. It's a complicated issue, but it is a hole right now in the XPS 15 to be worried about. All right, finishing up here, I'm a huge fan of the XPS 15. In fact, these two devices behind me are both mine. I even have a 4K version at home, and Dell actually hasn't sent us a review unit yet, so take my word here. The 9560 is a solid upgrade. You're going to get that improved processor, the GTX 1050, which is a great GPU. You'll get a faster SSD, faster RAM. You even get a fingerprint option now, which is just really seals the deal for me. Overall, the XPS 15 is still one of the best buys on the market today. It's perfect for prosumers and people who need to do video editing on the go, and who want a stylish device as well. Plus, it gets great battery life, so it's still going to get my rating as the best 15-inch laptop on the market today. So that's my review of the XPS 15 for 2017. If you want to see the full review, head to Windows Central for my full benchmarks and more. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Take care, everybody. For this year, and that's really impressive because it comes just below the FCC limit. Is the FCC? No. What's the, who? I'll just say limit for air travel.